All right. Hey, welcome back, fellow TFFL owners, to your weekly TFFL webcast. It is Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021. Happy holidays, everybody. It is Christmas week, and thus you only have two of us this week. So panel intros will be short and sweet. I haven't been introducing myself. Let me just remind you, I'm what is my title these days? Managing editor, TFFL Media. Leader of the Aliens, joined by High Command from Jack's Giant Killers. Berto, welcome.
Yes, great to be here. And then there were two.
Good to see you. This could go great. We hopefully will be a little more efficient than normal. Phil is don't cry any tears for Phil. He's down in the Bahamas right now, and Berkman, as we speak, is 30,000 feet in the air, heading down to Florida.
He's en route.
Yep. I tried to get a guest, was not able to join us. So we're just we got an easy agenda to talk about. Let's though first just state the big news. We were kind of talking about this before we went on. Kind of hard to avoid talking about this, and as the media of record in the TFFL, we should just note how big a factor this latest variant, the Omicron variant of COVID, has suddenly taken over again. We saw reports today that they were actually talking about canceling 3 NFL games from last week that they ultimately just postponed a little bit. We've seen the NHL shut down essentially for a little bit, back out of the Olympics. We've seen the NBA, if anybody, out there is in the TFBA as we are. I think my team in particular feels ravaged by COVID outages in the NBA. The NFL is, God bless them. They didn't miss a beat in 2020, so they're not going to probably, shut down now, but maybe there's the possibility of some games being canceled altogether, which would really throw things for a loop here.
Yeah, they're really gonna try and ram this in. I mean, there's no, they don't want to lose any games, and I went to the Eagles game yesterday, and I had Kramer's tickets. He couldn't make it due to the fact that it was moved. But it is amazing how many NFL games, and it's every night. It's
right.
7 o'clock, 5 o'clock on Monday and Tuesday and Thursday. And I was listening to on Sirius today, which I'm not feeling this way, but maybe some people are. But an NFL fatigue. So Mad Dog, are you familiar with Chris Russo, Mad Dog? If you have Sirius, he was a New York guy for many years, and then Sirius over the last however many 10 years or whatever it's been. But one of the things that they were talking about was all of these games every day, like
what week is it? Yeah,
and do people have fatigue with the NFL? And I don't see it because, man, everyone I talk to is like, oh my God, we got games today, and I got a game at 5 o'clock, and people are off from work, and so that part of it's kind of fun, and obviously going to the game yesterday was fun, but the actual impact to the games is crazy. And I think for this week, and I was just looking at the Packers squad, Tyreek Hill. That could be a big one. And then you look at Fats, Kelsey.
Yep.
So there's some big names that are on this, and I'm sure we'll go through that as we talk about the games. But it is it is such a crazy dynamic to this year's TFFL. Although I don't really feel like we felt it as much this year up until the last few weeks.
All of a sudden.
Last year, it was more of a constant drumbeat throughout the year. Maybe not as the deluge that it is right now. It was more of a steady state thing. this year it's more of it's hit us all of a sudden with a major impact at the end of the regular season here and the the midst of the fantasy playoffs. So it's another weird ripple and dynamic for sure.
The name that I just saw that really kind of struck me was Harrison Butker. Apparently unvaccinated,
Yeah.
definitely going to be out next week. If I'm correct, Harrison Butker was on the Hams. Did they not just trade?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So he's not relevant going forward necessarily, but it just struck me that Harrison Butker is the type of kicker who's often on a TFFL playoff team.
Right.
And you may not necessarily have a backup. You could kind of be left in a bit of a lurch there in a hurry, and there will be a fair number of players out this week, and the NFL is just kind of moving. The blurb was just like Harrison Butker's out this week, and they've signed some no-name kicker. The Chiefs are just they got to move on, but that would be a big blow to a fantasy team.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blow, but it's not. With the way that we have it, and I think it was well done how Rich set this up with the COVID picks. It's you get a COVID pick and you sort it out, and it's not I don't know who has waiver or priority picks or free agent picks left, but we'll we sort that out with the picks. But yes, a kicker is one thing, but a guy like Kelsey or Tyreek Hill, huge impacts.
Yep. All right, so hey, let's get right into it. Let's start by looking back a little bit to Week 15 action, first round of our TFFL playoffs here in 2021. We got 2 games in Week 15 we'll look at. We got 2 games coming up here in our semifinals in Week 16. Let's not dwell too much on the past, but let's cover the playoffs.
Yeah.
Let's start by talking about that Amsterdam Packers Slippery Beavers game. I will tell you all that I invited Thornburg to join us because he often likes being a guest when we need a last-minute guest. And not only couldn't he make it, but it sounded like he was in that the stages of grief. I'm not quite sure which stage he's at, but was not feeling TFFL tonight. Amsterdam Packers 56, Beavers 43.5. In other words, 56-41 on the scoreboard itself. 2.5 home field advantage points to the Beavers, not making a difference here. Not a high-scoring game. We talked about Taysom Hill at the top of the lineup for the AMPAC. He only puts up 3 points this week. Not as if there were greater options on the AMPAC bench with Russell Wilson with only 1, Ryan Tannehill with 6. But this was not a strong performance for the AMPAC, but they won.
Yeah. One of the I posted something on the Discord about the lowest amount of points, touchdowns in a 10-week slate since 1994. Or 10 game slate. So there wasn't a lot of scoring, and a lot of teams, many teams didn't put up points. You look at the Packers, and man, that wide receiver core came up big. Tyreek Hill, hasn't really had a tremendous season, but that was a huge game. And Devontae Parker and Keenan Allen. The Packers just did enough. 56 is not a great number, particularly in the playoffs when you're playing good teams. But that receiving core came up big. I do think Fournette being out, and I know we'll talk about this in a minute here, is gonna have an impact, and Tyreek Hill is gonna have an impact too. But they've figured out a way to get as many points as they can get from different sources this year, and some of the big names have not, really stood out. Like, Elliott has been up and down. I feel like he's definitely had some good weeks, and he put up 9.
Yep.
But Tyreek Hill has not been himself.
That whole shoots off.
However, if you look at this lineup compared to when I played the Packers in Week 14, which Ralph also needed to win, he got some of these guys back, and it's he's got a shot, right? I mean, he's got a good chance because he's got Elliott and Cook and Hill and Allen, and if those guys can put all up around 10 points, there's no reason why he can't beat the Wheels or the Sponge or the Fats, any of those teams going forward here. So, I think I would say the Packers are probably, if I were to rank them, probably the 4th strongest team right now in the playoffs. But, they can definitely put up points. And I think the fact that they snuck by this game, maybe they're due for a bust out. So.
Hey, quick bit of NFL chatter. We talked a lot on the webcast last week as we analyzed the first round games. Talked a lot about that Kansas City Chargers matchup that we saw this past week. And I was forecasting a much lower scoring game, I think, than most people were imagining. And for 3/4 of that game, it was very low scoring.
Yeah.
And then both teams kind of broke out in the fourth. I just want to point out, despite the final score of that game, despite Mahomes' final fantasy numbers in that game, he looked terrible. I mean, some of the passes he threw, Jay Schrader-esque pass, that goal line pass into the ground, the interception, he's not himself.
No, yeah, I mean, it didn't look great. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to have a very good career. Maybe he's not like, the second coming who is going to be the GOAT supplanting Brady, but he's going to be really good for a long time. And, maybe there's some, one of the things that I noticed a little bit, there's more pressure that he, maybe that offensive line needs a little booster. I don't know, and I'm sure that they're gonna address that. I don't know. Maybe if you look back and he doesn't have as much time as he did last year or the year before, or whatever, that's possible. But he does seem like he's under more pressure now, and he's less escapability. But
I don't know.
But I did, at the end of the day, I think the over/under in that game was 52. It was 62.
Yep.
So, there was plenty of points to be had in that game. That was kind of the exception compared to a lot of the other games for this past week. So,
all right, we'll talk more about the Amsterdam Packers in a moment when we look ahead to the second round action. Let's give the Beavers just a minute or two. Their season is over. An odd season that saw them win their division with a 6-8 record. And kind of an odd situation as you look at this franchise going forward. Take a quick look at the lineup here. The first thing I would point out, and I've been kind of harsh, I think, on Tua Tagovailoa all year long, but here's a guy I didn't think merited being a keeper. Didn't necessarily start a ton of games, I don't think, for the Beavers all season long. Didn't start week 1, as I recall. Doesn't start the playoff game. Is there a keeper quarterback here between Tua or Kirk Cousins?
Well, let's see. He's got. So I was texting Bill about something else.
The interesting thing is his running backs. Obviously, he's got.
Yeah, and he what he told me was 4 running backs.
Right.
So he's got Jacobs, Harris,
McCaffrey,
and Etienne. Right. Is
Yep.
the plan.
Yep.
If all things pan out for him. So that's 4.
4 young running backs.
Yep. And then he's got Godwin, unfortunate ACL.
Yep.
That's tough. So that's 5. And then we've got
Then you probably have Claypool in the mix.
well, Lockett.
And Lockett maybe. Kenny Golladay, really, I don't think you can keep him.
No, so I would say Lockett is 6. And then where do you go from there? And then I think it's probably, I think he's saying Tua after that. I don't possibly Claypool, but I have a feeling it's going to be Tua. Maybe not. I don't know, but
the encouraging thing, if you're a Beavers fan, is that running back core, assuming Christian McCaffrey comes back healthy, which is obviously not a safe assumption. But Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs, for what he's worth, he's a just fine number 3 or number 4 running back, and Travis Etienne with we'll see what kind of upside he can tap next year. But yeah, and then whatever he brings in the draft this year. So,
I mean, but to answer your question, he doesn't, Bill is can be stubborn, right? And if he doesn't want to, get off of the Tua train here, I mean, he could, right? For sure. This guy, I mean, you could make an argument for Kirk Cousins being a keeper over him, especially with Jefferson there and Thielen. But it seems like he's going to hold on to Tua. And, he's got 6 keepers, and then he's got, Claypool or a quarterback. And I think he would probably go quarterback. So.
All right, we'll see. Let's move on to the other playoff game from first round action. Not a close one at all. Boba Fett's keep rolling. Let's see if I can get a quick answer on this. They ended the season, as I recall, on a 8-game winning streak.
That's right.
Just won their 9th in a row with this first round playoff win. 73.5 for the Boba Fett's, 33 for the Lizards. Really flat performance for the Lizards. Boba Fett's moving on, looking like you talked about ranking the teams. You put the Boba Fett's at number 1 right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, so the Fats in this game, yeah. I mean, Herbert's been great. Taylor has been, the fantasy MVP, if not the NFL MVP. I know there's a lot of chatter about him potentially being an NFL MVP.
Yep.
Kelsey had a huge game. Somewhat disappointing with Williams and Patterson and Higgins. He definitely, he needs to see some more points from those guys against a tough Sponge team. AJ Green probably disappointing with 3 points. So yeah, I mean, he put up a big number, but it's concerning, right? Because he doesn't have Kelsey potentially coming up. We'll see how that all plays out, but yeah, it wasn't again 73.5 is a nice number, but some concerning things in this too. He's got Taylor needs to do what he's been doing. Taylor and Herbert have got to keep it up, but he needs more against a tough Sponge team. So
he was going to win that game by virtue of the fact that the Lizards only scored 33, but really it was that fourth quarter again of the Chiefs Chargers game where both Kelsey, Kelsey scored how many points? 22 fantasy points. I'm guessing 18 of those came in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Justin Herbert exploded in the fourth quarter. Jonathan Taylor, for that matter, really put up most of his fantasy points on that one run, with 3 minutes to go in the game.
Yeah. That was a 67-yard touchdown. Yeah. I mean, that was huge.
But yeah, it's you'd like to see a little bit more out of the supporting cast. He's got Devin Singletary, starting to get more touches in Buffalo. Dallas Goedert having a good game, a good stretch at tight end. So he's got some options.
Yeah, Goddard looked good last night in the Eagles game. He was getting the ball. So that could be 135 yards.
Yeah, if Kelsey sits, you plug Goddard in.
Yeah, he looked real good. They're playing the Giants. The Eagles are playing the Giants. This is the thing. He's got a good bench right now. So Antonio Brown coming back.
Yep.
So maybe that's not useful for this week, but it could be for the Pac Bowl if he makes it. I don't know if that's a guy he would want to play this week after being out, but maybe for next week. But Devontae Smith is an option. Goddard we talked about, so he's got a couple guys here. So yeah, and then if you look at the Lizards, yeah, Dak hasn't been putting up the numbers. So that really is crippling.
Again, real quick, take a step back to the NFL level with me. I wanted to ask about the Dallas offense. They scored 21 against the Giants, which is acceptable maybe, but that offense is not functioning the way it should. You've got Dak Prescott, you've got Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard in the backfield. You've got Amari Cooper, who I think is maybe a little banged up. But you've got Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, coming off the concussion. I'm making excuses for all these guys. Michael Gallup. You got 3 super talented receivers. You got Dalton Schultz, who's a pretty darn good tight end. You've got a good offensive line. It's not like those guys are injured like they were last year.
Yeah.
What more could you ask for?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. It's
something's
they've got a pretty good defense too, right? A good defense. And Zeke's been getting the ball and Pollard's been getting some play. And so I don't know if it's just they're not like, to me, if you got all of those guys that you just mentioned and you got a good defense, well, light it up. Light it up. Go nuts. Score points and then play good defense and put teams away, especially a team like the Giants, right? I mean, there's no reason to not score in the 30s against the Giants. So I don't know. That is puzzling, but that's another guy. You were saying, and who were you saying before that wasn't looking like himself?
Mahomes.
Mahomes, right?
Yeah.
Mahomes.
Yeah.
So Dak is kind of in that camp right now too. He's not quite there.
Russell Wilson too for that. Something's going on with these guys. But let's go. Sorry, go back to the Lizards. Their season's done, obviously.
Yeah, Connor. We talked about that. That was a great pick. He just didn't do anything this week. Mixon didn't do a lot. Eckler had a pretty decent game, but they didn't get anything from anybody else. And the game was over by yesterday, so it didn't really matter what Beckham did, but he did nothing. Evans got hurt. So a couple, particularly Connor and Mixon, and of late OBJ too, who've been putting up points for the Lizards, just didn't show up in the playoffs. Like a lot of guys didn't show up.
This was just a bad week for the Lizards.
This was just a bad scoring week in the NFL. And outside of the Chiefs, Chargers, and the Eagles game, and a couple other things here and there, there was a lot of disappointing fantasy stats this week, and unfortunately for the Lizards, they were hit by a couple of those. So.
Again, let's spend a minute looking forward with the Lizards. I look at their starting lineup from last week, and I have to imagine, for the most part, that's their keeper list heading forward. maybe Michael Thomas, I guess, overtakes somebody there. Is Odell Beckham a keeper or is Michael Thomas a keeper? I don't think you're keeping both of those guys going forward. This is an older lineup, generally speaking. We'll probably talk more about this in the offseason. I don't want to beat up on the Lizards too much, but really kind of whiffed on some picks in this draft. We don't need to belabor the Jamar Chase situation. But this is an older franchise. They're probably going to lose one of these veteran receivers, Beckham or Thomas. Mixon, Eckler, Connor are all old, getting old as far as running backs go. These guys are going to need some fresh talent at some point, but a solid keeper list going.
Yeah, I it's weird, but I think this is it's strange, and there's probably not another team, either that's in the cash bowl or the playoffs that has their starting lineup in there. But I think the Lizards, this is probably it. Who they got in is
you'd keep Beckham over Michael Thomas?
Yes. Yeah, I would. I think he's shown enough. Michael Thomas he's really been banged up. They've got question marks at quarterback. I'm just looking. Michael Thomas is 28. How old is Beckham? He's 29. Okay. I mean, it's close. I would keep Beckham. But between those two, I mean, it could be a trade too. I would say it's Beckham over, Michael Thomas is he's he could be at the end of the line here. He's been out of it so long. So, and not a great situation there. So, but this would be the keeper list I would expect for the Lizards. Yeah.
Let me correct myself a little bit before Rich does it for me. These running backs aren't all that old. They are veteran running backs. But Connor is 26 right now. Eckler is 26. Joe Mixon is 25. Add a year to all three of those guys by the time we get to 2022. But I guess the big question I would have with the running backs, as great a season as James Conner had, what's his role next year? Is Chase Edmonds the number one guy?
No. Connor has shown he's been awesome. I mean, he's been lights out. Like, they would be foolish to go in any other direction, but Connor being the guy and riding him for, like you said, he's only 26 for the next couple of years. I mean, if you take a step back and you look at everyone's running back core, all of a sudden, what was a question mark for the Lizards is, you could argue that this is one of the strongest, if not the strongest, running back core in the TFL, which no one was thinking that way. Rich wasn't thinking that way. It just it came together. The Connor, that trade and him going crazy kind of coincided. And Mixon has the problem in Cincinnati in the past has been Mixon and then nobody else in Cincinnati's offense. And now they have Burrow, they have Chase, T. Higgins, Boyd. They have weapons there. So Mixon is reaping some of that benefit, and Eckler has been really good too. So all of a sudden, now on the flip side, you could argue that their receiving core and the vaunted Lizards receiving core of years past is not there anymore, and it's kind of flipped to a really strong running back core. But again, it's still a good keeper list, and it's a really good running back list.
Yeah, and again, Rich and Adam had a very good year. They were 9-4-1 in the regular season. I'm probably guilty of sitting here staring at their lineup from last week, which only scored 33 points, has a lot of lackluster numbers up and down the lineup, staring at these guys and going, they're old and washed up, and I'm sorry, that's a wrong assumption. that is a good, relatively young running back core, even though all those guys are veterans.
Yeah, and Rich's counter to that would be that the Lizards have scored the most points in the TFL.
They've been scored very consistently.
So
Mike Evans is a stud. Yeah, you're right about the receivers. Deontay Johnson is a very good player. We'll see about the Steelers' quarterback situation next year. But this is a strong 7 keeper list right here in the lineup.
Yes, for sure.
All right, so let's talk about the 2 semifinal games. The big one, maybe. They're both big, but in terms of bluster, perhaps.
Where are we starting?
I'm going to start with AMPAC and K-Wheels. Division rivalry, third game this year between these guys. Com.com has it as a basically break-even game right now. Don't know what kind of lineup shuffling is still to come here, but let's take a look. Let's figure out what folks are at risk of missing this game with COVID. Berto, why don't you lead us through this? This is your division.
Yeah, this is God, can't root for either of these teams, but I wish them well. Yeah, so let's start with the wheels. It's Brady. I mean, oof. This is why the bye is so important. And you and Phil and I, exchanged a couple texts on this, and Phil just a sigh of relief that he wasn't playing this week due to Tampa Bay scoring 0 points. And that's rough. And New Orleans seems to have Brady's number for whatever reason. And I think if we start there, that's not going to happen again. Brady is going to come out pissed, and they're going to put up points. The over-under in this game is 44, which is pretty low. But Tampa's a 10-point favorite. So, that probably means high 20s, I guess, for Tampa Bay. Fournette out, right? It looks like. We'll talk about that in a second on the other side of the equation here. But just in terms of how that will help Brady, I think he's going to throw, and I think he's going to have probably 3 touchdowns, which I think if you were to say 3 touchdowns, Phil would sign up for that in a heartbeat. I think Brady is going to want to prove something after last week. I think without Fournette in the lineup, Carolina defense is not anywhere near the Saints defense. He's going to get his. Then you go to Antonio Gibson. That's a problem. I watched at the game last night, 3rd-string quarterback who was not horrible. Gilbert was okay. But Gibson, that I think it's going to hurt him a little bit. They're just not going to put up points. And maybe he'll get a touchdown. But that could be a challenge. Barkley against the Eagles, possibly a decent game. You get down the receiving core, Metcalf, Jefferson, Marquise Brown. I think the wheels have to have one big game out of one of these 3 guys. Metcalf has been frustrating. Jefferson's been great. I think the Baltimore-Cincinnati game, there could be some points. Is Lamar coming back? I'm not. Where are we standing on that?
I think he's still iffy.
He's still iffy. Okay, so that's a big one. I think if Lamar comes back, that Marquise Brown has a chance to have a decent game there, but they need a big performance. Metcalf has got to, he's got to come to life, or Jefferson's got to have a huge game. And then Pitts. I don't know. What did Pitts do this week?
I don't have his numbers right in front of me. But
He had 77 yards.
Yeah.
He has not gone over 3 points since week 9. He's scored 3, 3, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3. I don't know if Pitts is the answer, but you know, I don't know who else that they're going to put in here.
I think you play talent. I think I see 3 uber talented guys in the K-Wheels lineup who have underperformed: Kyle Pitts, DK Metcalf, Saquon Barkley. This is the time for those guys to step up.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take Barkley. You can't take Barkley out.
No,
sure, but I think Pitts you could. I mean, he has not scored a touchdown in a while. I don't know what the answer is here, and I'm scrolling down his lineup here. Miles Sanders did get a little banged up at the end of the Eagles game. He had a great game, but he was not in the game a lot of that fourth quarter. And Jordan Howard, again, Washington was ravaged by COVID. They looked terrible on defense. If Miles Sanders does not play, and if that injury is more serious, he's got to seriously think about Jordan Howard in place of Kyle Pitts. That would be the guy. That would be, to me, the guy in the K-Wheels lineup that he's really got to think about. Does he pull the plug on this guy now? Because there's no touchdowns since week 5.
All right, let's talk AMPAC here real quick. Tyreek Hill is a big question mark, obviously, with COVID.
Yeah.
He's locked himself to Taysom Hill as his quarterback. I guess he's going to ride or die with him. And the interesting story here in the AMPAC lineup, I think, is at running back, obviously, where they're number 3. They're going to be starting two Vikings this week with Leonard Fournette out. Their number 3 running back is going to be Alexander Madison. So they've got both Cook and Madison in the lineup. I don't think they have a lot of better options.
Yeah. That's well, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to hold up. I mean, Gesicki. I was going to say Gesicki.
But then you got Gesicki and Devontae Parker playing against New Orleans, which just shut out Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that's true. It's against New Orleans. What other? Yeah, that's it. I mean,
yeah.
There's not any other options. I guess you have to. I guess he's got to play him.
I'd like to see what the over/under is going to be on that Dolphins-Saints game, because if New Orleans defense can shut down Miami like they shut down Tampa, I don't think New Orleans offense with Taysom Hill at quarterback is going to score a ton. That's going to be a low-scoring game that affects this fantasy game here.
Let's see. The over/under of that game is 38.5.
Yeah.
No, but you're right. I think. Madison is a real tough start there for sure.
But then so is having 2 Dolphins receivers out there.
Yeah. That Fournette injury really that really stings, because he was playing well. But that one hurts for Ralph for sure.
All right, give me a prediction.
Well, just one other thing too about Taysom Hill. Again, that is New Orleans Miami game with an over under 38.5, like we just said.
Right.
And we're talking about the receivers for the Dolphins. Do you look elsewhere? But then, it's either Russell Wilson against Chicago. That's tough. Russell Wilson, 156 yards, no touchdowns.
You can't play Russell Wilson right now. You
And
can't.
then you have Ryan Tannehill, 153 yards, no touchdowns last week, playing tomorrow against San Francisco.
Playing on Thursday night. Right. I think Taysom Hill is the right start this week for sure. But it's not super enticing.
But
give me your pick.
In a low-scoring game, like you just said, like Vegas says, it's not an appealing. It's not an appealing start, but at the end of the day, none of the three quarterbacks he has on the roster, none of those starts look great. So a prediction?
Yeah.
I think we just kind of hit on it. We talked about Taysom Hill. We talked about that New Orleans-Miami game. We talked about the Madison start. I don't like those couple things there. That game and Madison as the third running back. So I don't like that for the AMPAC. And what I like for the wheels is Brady, kind of with last week's game fresh in his mind, who he just played against New Orleans, wanting to put up points. I think it's going to be wheels. Wheels 66, AMPAC 50.
Wow. All right. Yeah. If Tyreek Hill does not play for the AMPAC, I think obviously that sets them back a great deal. But yeah, everything and the other thing we haven't talked about, 2.5 points going to the K-Wheels as the number one seed here, home field advantage points. I think there's a lot of things that seem to be trending toward the K-Wheels as I look at these lineups. You rattled off a bunch of them. Add the 2.5 points for the K-Wheels. And I see this as maybe something more like a 70-60 game, not too far.
Let's make it 68.5, 50.
All right. So let's move on to the second playoff game this week. We got the number 2 seed, Southern Conference champion Sponge Fishermen, playing the Boba Fats, I guess technically our number 3 seed. But again, riding a 9-game winning streak now. You said it earlier, probably in your mind, the top seeded team right now. So let's take a look at this matchup as it is right now on the site. Do we have any big COVID issues here we need to be watching?
Yeah, Kelsey.
Kelsey's the big one for the Fats. Yep.
I think that's it.
You mentioned it. Antonio Brown coming back into the
Boba Fats.
They've got him in the lineup. They've still got Kelsey in the lineup, but I think he's coming out.
That's the other thing too. We're just talking about the wheels and Brady, right? I mean, Brady's got to throw touchdown passes in this game, and they've got to go to somebody. So
they're not going to Godwin.
Evans is going to be out. Godwin is out. He's done. Gronk might get one. Somebody else, Scotty Miller or whomever will get one, and maybe Antonio Brown is a good play. So, but anyway, if you look at this, quarterbacks, who knows? Like Aaron Rodgers, and this is the thing with the Sponge, they can explode at any time with the Packers. If the Packers have a huge game, all bets are off, and they'll easily win the game. But I'm going to call this one kind of even. I think they're both going to put up points, and it's interesting. Over under is both 45.5 for both the Chargers Houston and the Packers Cleveland game. So the site has Herbert, outperforming Rodgers, by a bit. But I think that'll be pretty close, right? Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, man. Again, it seems like Jonathan Taylor should have a huge advantage there, but Aaron Jones could just as easily score, right? It all depends upon whether Jonathan Taylor has a humongous game or, is he contained to like 100-yard, 120, 130-yard type game and a touchdown, and Aaron Jones has an 80-yard game and a touchdown. If Jonathan Taylor goes crazy, as the fantasy MVP in my eyes, then the Sponge are in trouble. Patterson didn't do a lot. Did he score this past week?
I don't think so. I can confirm that.
No, he had 1 point this past week. So he's kind of come back to life or back to earth a little bit. He scored 4. He had a touchdown in week 14. So he's been playing great. Against Detroit, I think that's a fine start. And Javonte Williams, he is questionable right now, but I think he plays. And I think he's potentially has a big game against the Raiders. So I think Herbert and the running back core real strong for sure for the Pats. And then you get down to the receivers and Kelsey, right? And this is where the Sponge have a big advantage.
Yep. Especially if Kelsey is out.
Antonio Brown, a big question mark. T. Higgins is fine, but I would put him 4th after Kupp and Adams and Diggs.
That's a great receiving core.
Is 4th, and Kelsey, that's great, but man, if he doesn't play, that is a huge issue for the Pats. And the fact that the Sponge have that wide receiver core intact for the playoff run is huge. Kupp, monster game last night. Adams looks great. Diggs looks real good. Great trade. Man, that wide receiver core is awesome. It's fantastic. And you look at the matchups, I think the Rams-Minnesota game is going to be high scoring.
Yep.
I think the Packers are going to score on Cleveland. They'll put up points there. Buffalo, New England, okay, but those guys are matchup proof anyway. They're gonna get theirs. So if they're gonna get 3 touchdowns between those 3 wide receivers, and let's call it, maybe 40 points or more, that's huge. And David Montgomery, he's got Damian Harrison right now.
It's a solid running back core.
Yeah, it's solid.
Yep. Give me a pick, Berto.
I think this is the week that the Fats losing streak ends. I think it's going to be. I mean, the site right now has it 74-64 Fats. I think if Kelsey plays, it's very close.
Mm-hmm.
I think if he's out, I've got to give it to the sponge. I am going to say 76 to 76 to 74.5.
Other way around here. The sponge or the higher seed, they're getting 2.5 points as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. The sponge. All right. So let's go 76.5 to 75.
All right. You're very close to the numbers I have in mind. This is a tough game to call. I feel like I've been picking against the Fats a couple times recently, and they keep proving me wrong. What this really comes down to, I think, is, as you noted, is are Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and Devontae Adams gonna have a monster game together?
Yeah.
I tend to lean in the direction of yes with those guys most weeks. I think they can do that against Cleveland. So I've got the sponge winning this game as well. The number I had was 79.5 to 75. I think this should be a very good game. The Fats keep doing it week in and week out. They won 9 straight. I don't know why I'm picking against them.
Yeah, and me too. But again, the sponge are healthy right now.
It's a great looking team. Yeah.
They're healthy, and the Fats are not. They've got a couple challenges here. Kelsey being one of them for sure.
So those are the big COVID question marks we all should be watching are Kelsey and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
And I think in both cases that could really swing those matchups and put the Ampac and the Boba Fats at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
All right, Berto, thanks for joining me.
Yes, this is
Happy
great.
holidays.
Happy holidays.
Good luck to our 4 remaining teams. Good luck to everybody this coming weekend. I hope you get everything you asked for under the tree in your stocking. Hanukkah's over. It sounded like Rich got himself all sorts of treats these last few weeks. So I think he's happy. Enjoy. So everybody stay safe out there. Enjoy. I know you're traveling down to North Carolina. Enjoy Pinehurst without playing golf.
I know. It's a shame, but not this trip.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Good luck this weekend to our 4 semifinalists. We will be back here presumably next Wednesday. Rich and Phil should be back with us, and we will talk about the Packed Bowl final coming up in week 17.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck. Take care. Merry Christmas.